cheers everybody. Thank you for watching the video. As you can see, I'm unwrapping a 5-pound chuck roast that I will be dividing into 2 parts so that it cooks faster. And as you see, they tied it up like a roast. And I'm looking at the marbling at this time, and the butcher did a really good job on this one. So now we're gonna go ahead and cut the banding off of this so that we can cut down the middle here. Get it about even. Fresh chuck roast. Let's cut it through. Now go ahead and take a look at that marbling. Some good fat throughout the meat itself. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of the twine that they have on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim these down so I can get as much of the fat as I can off of it, that and leave just a little bit, but that fat that's on the top there and on the side is really hard fat. You want to go ahead and get that cut off. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I'll be back here in a second. Right, so at this point I'm cutting out the really hard pieces of fat, because as the meat is cooking, these hard pieces of fat will not render out into the meat itself, so it's more or less a waste unless you have like a fat cap. You can have it help deflect from the heat, so something to take into consideration when you're trimming up. So now that you have the idea what's going on with the cutting the fat off, we won't waste time showing the other piece of meat as I do the same thing to it. So let's skip ahead here. Okay, the meat is done. It's all cut. And I'm actually throwing away the fat this time, but usually you can take it and use it to grind up with hamburger and stuff to give a more fatty meat, which in turn makes for a better burger. So I'm using Worcestershire sauce to act as a binder. It doesn't take much. Go ahead and just rub that around. I've been watching quite a few people online on what type of medium they use. Some people don't use any. And yeah, people that use mustard. And then I've seen like T-Roy Cooks. Troy, he uses Worcestershire sauce, so this is the first time I've tried it. The reason why I'm trying it is it does have a high salt content, and that salt will help with the moisture. It helps draw it out on the rub, so you get that nice glistening rub after you're done. So we're going to go ahead and get this done here. Little pink Himalayan salt. Always put your salt on first if you're doing it. It helps draw some of the moisture out, along with the Worcestershire sauce. Like I just said, that salt content will help with drawing that out. Make sure to get all sides as you go. Even on the fat cap, it'll help draw some of the moisture out of that fat as well. Alright, so now I'm going to be putting some steak on. It's an American style. It's got a lot of black pepper in it, which is really good. I actually picked these products up, the rub some. So you have rub some chicken, rub some butt, rub some steak, They have different rubs for all kinds of meat, and they also have an all-purpose, and it's put out by Barbecue Spot. And if you can't get it in your area, you can go to barbecuespot.com, look them up, probably send it to you. Alright, so go ahead and get yourself a foil pan or something to place them in. And I just leave them open to the air and put them in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. Alright, time to light up the grill. If you notice, I don't have a lot of, I only have like one briquette in there. These are hardwood briquettes. I don't like them too much. I went back to the hardwood afterwards, but they're not bad to use. I find they don't last as long, but I went ahead and just put a chimney full of these briquettes in there. They're not Kingsford at all. They're I think it's Cowboy brand. And I go ahead and get them going here. So now I'm going to add some pecan wood to it. I never soak my wood. I just, when it comes in these little non-large pieces of wood, I just scatter them all about. So works just as well. You want to get that initial smoke where you get that crust going, and then pretty much after you get where you want with the outside of the meat, then you can go ahead and wrap that thing and just let it go to get to temperature. So yep, not much to it. I use a heater meter that I built myself, and what it is it controls the air put coming in on the bottom, and as soon as it reaches temperature, it maintains it, so you don't have to sit there and fiddle with your top and your bottom vents all the time. I find that helps a lot, and I know there's a lot of products out there on the market, but if you look up heatermeter.com, you can actually build one out of a Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi that you use is the Zero, which costs you about $5. So I think the whole thing total with the fan and everything that goes with it was around $100, where you're going to pay like $200 for something else. So if you're good at soldering or whatever, I really highly recommend this. So I just crack that open to number 1, and then the fan down below does the blowing. That thing controls it, and yeah, you're off to the races. As soon as it gets to temperature, ready to go. So we've had the meat in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. Had some time to let some of this real light rub go to work, mostly letting the salt do the work. I didn't put a ton of salt on, but it's enough to, make it do what you want to do. The more you put on, the more moisture is going to be pulled out of it. If you're doing a really hard crust on it, I would suggest having it in a rub that you mix together and do it instead of doing adding the ingredients one at a time like I did. Just go and place them above the heat deflector. There's no direct holes, so the heat will just surround them, and you won't get char on it at all. So placing the heat probe in the middle of one of the steaks. You don't have to do it now, but it's going to take a little while. I'm going to say after about an hour and a half, go ahead and do it if you wanted to. There were 2 different sizes of meat, so I just said screw it and put the probes in at the start. Doesn't matter, because you're not going to be turning them anyway. Okay, at this time it's been going only for about half an hour, 40 minutes. I just wanted to take a look at them, make sure that they weren't falling apart, from the standpoint of flopping around. So yeah, that looks good. Now we've been in for about an hour and 40 minutes, so you can see how it's starting to puff up a little bit. You're getting some of that smoke a little bit in there. After the shot, I didn't film it. I went ahead and added a bit more pecan wood to it so that we get a little bit more of the smoke on the outside of it. But you know, this is fine. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I'm going to start squirting it down with the apple cider vinegar and apple juice 50-50 mix. If you don't have that, I've used just apple juice or apple cider vinegar with a 50-50 mix with water, so that works too. Alright, so now we've been going for about 3 hours. And if you can see, I moved them a little bit. I kind of turned the whole thing, actually. The beeping is the heater meter saying that there's a temp differentiation, so I'm just keeping these guys moist. If I do it again, I wouldn't spray them as much until I get at least 3 hours in. I was spraying it like every half hour up till now. I wanted to make sure that these chuck roasts didn't dry out. But I found that you really don't need to do that with the chuck roast because they stay pretty moist anyway. Like I said, you don't have to spray them too much because we're about, let's see, 3.5 hours in, and we're getting a temperature, we're about 160, 165 on these guys. And I'm adding beef broth to this. And I'm going to fill it up as much as that container will give so that they sit and soak. And at this point, we're pretty much looking for heat, then smoke. So for the rest of the cook, it's going to be this way. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this in a real thick aluminum foil. And I'll keep the heat in. It'll keep the beef broth from boiling off, because I've noticed that happens if you just leave your pan open. You'll lose all your juice. It'll evaporate away out of the top. So yeah, looks good.
All right, so we are done. We've gotten to a temperature of about 205. I pulled them off about 200, and then they went up to about 205. Slicing into the chuck roast. It's kind of the same as cutting into a brisket, but I know a lot of you people will be like, that's a thumbs down. But hey, you know what? You don't want to spend the money on an expensive brisket. This is kind of the cheaper way. The reason why the spices are kind of coming off is, you know, it's been sitting in that juice, that beef broth, for a while, so it does fall apart. But like I said at the beginning, that I typed at the beginning, this is the poor man's brisket, so you're not going to get quite the quality of a cut, but it does come out good. Wife and I had it that night, had some beans, had some coleslaw. It's tender, it's juicy, good beef flavor. Can't go wrong for a third of the price, right? Cheers.